Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Hello everyone. My name is Fathimah Azzahra. I am a student of English Literature from Anderlecht University, and I would like to make a presentation under the title Phoneme, Allophone, and the Distribution of Speech Sounds in Phonology. I prepare myself some slides contains the materials that we are going to discuss today. So let's get started. My contents are divided into four. So the first one, we are going to discuss the phoneme, the definition, and some examples. And then the allophone, which is a variant of phoneme, and there are a distribution, contrastive and complementary distribution. And the last is conclusion, which we conclude all the materials in the end. So let's just get into the materials. The first materials is phoneme. What is the phoneme? Phoneme is the smallest significant unit in language that distinguishes meaning. Phoneme could mean a cognitive reality of the sound. So, what is the physical reality of the sound instead? Well, the physical reality of the sound is called phones. So, it is like the existent sound as sound waves, and it can be individually produced, also recognized by the speaker of language, while the phoneme itself is just a cognitive reality. So it is like an abstraction of the sound. Here we got the example of phoneme in the word pen. The phonemes are p, e, and n. So we can be conclude that the phonemes pen is three, p, e, and n sound. Next, the example of phoneme. If we want to know if there is a phoneme or not, we can use a minimal pair. Minimal pair is intended to compare one word to another. Consider one phoneme means represent one sound. For example, in the minimal pair fly and fry. Fly has three phonemes. Fry has also three phonemes. But what makes them different is in the sound. Here we got the sound O, and here we got the sound So by using minimal pairs, we can determine if it's phoneme or not. This is a phoneme O and this is a phoneme The two are different because they are contrast in phoneme, also contrast in meaning. They are also contrast in the production of the sound, which fly is produced by touching the tip of the tongue behind the upper front teeth, which is called voice alveolar lateral, and the production of sound of fry is produced by raising the tongue to the part of the palate that behind the alveolar ridge that called voice palato-alveolar approximant. The second is allophone. Allophone is a branch or variant of phoneme in a phonetic variant that causes a different pronunciation of a same phoneme in a particular language. For example, there are an aspirated sound, which is a sound that pronounced with a lot of air puffs, while there are also an aspirated sound, which is just an ordinary sound. Here we got the example of the two. The first is k. We pronounce it k, k, with a lot of air puffs. That is called aspirated sound. And here we got the ordinary k, k, k. That is called an aspirated sound. Here are the examples of allophone, which is the variant of phoneme. Here we got the phoneme k, and here are the variant of phoneme. So the first variant is k, k, that aspirated and occurs in word initially. For example, kindness, kindness, kindness. The second variant is unaspirated sound, occurs in between the sound. For example, faker, faker. And the third variant is k, ordinary k, that unaspirated to and occurs in word finally. For example, pluck, pluck. So the difference is in the first, it occurs in the first and aspirated. And the second is k, ordinary k, in between the sounds. So this is an aspirated sound. And also in word finally, an aspirated sound. So they are different, but in one phoneme. So this is called allophone. Well, we all have studied the phoneme and allophone, so let us see the differences between them. The first one is phoneme. Phoneme is a significant unit of sound in a word, while allophone is the articulation of a phoneme. Phoneme is contrastive, but allophone is non-contrastive. Phoneme is unpredictable distribution, but allophone is predictable distribution. We can be conclude that phoneme and allophone is different, is not the same. They are have their own rule and they are have their own environment that makes them different. Third material, the distribution of speech sounds in phonology. The distribution is a set of phonetic environments or the sounds that surround it in which a phone occurs. For example, the sound that precede it or the sound that follow it. What is the meaning of this? The sound that precede it or the sound that follow it? Well, let's just get into the example. Well, we've got the example of allophone A. So we are going to determine the distribution of allophone A. The example of allophone A in the word maze. So what is the distribution of it? Here are the distribution. Occurs when the vowels followed by a voice consonant sound. So here are the distribution. So the allophone A has a distribution in the word maze. The distribution is occurs when the vowels followed by a voice consonant sound. The distribution can be divided into two parts, which is contrastive distribution and complementary distribution. The contrastive distribution. Contrastive distribution is the situation when two sounds occur in a similar environment, but that makes contrast in semantic as a result. The simple example of contrastive distribution is a minimal pair. To determine if it is categorized as a contrastive distribution or not, we can find two words that have the same number of phones and differ only in one phone in the same position, like in a minimal pair. So here are the examples. Read and lead. Read and lead. Eat, eat. They are similar in environment. Eat, eat. But what makes them different? Only in one phone. The difference is in the phoneme and the second one is phoneme o. That's why we call contrastive distribution. Next, there are complementary distribution. Complementary distribution is a relation between the variants of a phoneme, or we all called it allophone, and which occurs in a set of phonological environments. Complementary distribution is called complementary because it has many environments and they are all different. Like only word initially followed by a vowel that becomes aspirated sound. Otherwise, it is not aspirated or word initially because they have their own rule for their environments. Here are the example of complementary distribution. Here we got the phoneme p and the distribution. The first variant is p that occurs in initial stress position or at the beginning that followed by a vowel and aspirated. For example, poker, poker. The second is p after s that occurs in the middle position preceded by s and unaspirated. For example, space, space. And the last is p that occurs in the final position preceded by a vowel and unaspirated. For example, clap, clap. Here are the complementary distribution. Between the three distribution, they are not the same. They are different. P is aspirated because is in initial stress position, also followed by a vowel. Ordinary p after s is unaspirated because there is in the middle position. And p in word finally is unaspirated because it's preceded by a vowel. So they are all have their own rule for their environments. That is why we call it a complementary distribution. They are all not the same. Finally, we've got into the conclusion of all materials. Here we are conclude the materials, phoneme and allophone. Phoneme is the smallest unit in language that distinguish meaning, while allophone is the variation of phoneme, but mean the same things. Allophone is not distinguish meaning. It's not make distinguish meaning. So allophone is mean the same things, and phoneme is can make distinguish meaning. That is why allophone and phoneme is a different. Contrastive distribution. Contrastive distribution is the situation when two sounds occur in a similar environment, but each makes different in meaning. To determine, we can use a minimal pair. And the last is complementary distribution. Complementary distribution is a relation between allophones that occurs in a combination of a phonological environments. Well, I think I've covered the point that I needed to tell you today, guys. So hope it helps and thank you for watching my videos. Have a great day, everyone. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.